I have said several times in this series that I think that the romantic tradition is something similar to dark academia. And if I could take that one step further, what I would say is that the Romantics were closest to dark academia when they were at their edgiest. And I think we have a pretty good example of that today. Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I am Adrian Fort, and we are here for another poetry discussion, which will appear, of course, in two different playlists here on the channel. Number one being the poetry discussion playlist, now cruising towards 800 videos strong, but number two being the Dark Academia playlist, a playlist of videos dedicated to the aesthetic and the ascetic. The poem in question today is Hymn to Intellectual Beauty by Percy Shelley, and it reads as such. The awful shadow of some unseen power floats through unseen among us, visiting this various world with inconstant wing as summer winds that creep from flower to flower, like moonbeams that behind some piney mountain shower, it visits with inconstant glance each human heart and countenance, like hues and harmonies of evening, like clouds in the starlight widely spread, like memory of music fled, like aught that for its grace may be dear, and yet dearer for its mystery. Spirit of beauty that dost consecrate with thine own hues all thou dost shine upon of human thought or form, where art thou gone? Why dost thou pass away and leave our state, this dim, vast vale of tears, vacant and desolate? Ask why the sunlight not forever weaves rainbows o'er yon mountain river, why aught should fail and fade that once is shown, why fear and dream and death and birth cast on the daylight of this earth such gloom, why man has such a scope for love and hate, despondency and hope. No voice from some sublimer world hath ever to sage or poet these responses given. Therefore the names of demon, ghost, and heaven remain the records of their vain endeavor. Frail spells whose uttered charm might not avail to sever from all we hear and all we see doubt, chance, and mutability. Thy light alone, like mist o'er mountains driven, or music by the night wind sent through strings of some still instrument, or moonlight on a midnight stream, gives grace and truth to life's unquiet dream. Love, hope, and self-esteem like clouds depart and come for some uncertain moments lent. Man were immortal and omnipotent, didst thou, unknown and awful as thou art, keep with thy glorious train firm state with his heart. Thou messenger of sympathies that wax and wane in lovers' eyes, thou that to human thought art nourishment, like darkness to a dying flame, depart not as thy shadow came, depart not lest the grave should be like life and fear and dark reality. While yet a boy I sought for ghosts, and sped through many a listening chamber, cave and ruin and starlight wood, with fearful steps pursuing hopes of high talk with the departed dead. I called on poisonous names with which our youth is fed. I was not heard, I saw them not, when musing deeply on the lot of life, at that sweet time when winds are wooing all vital things that wake to bring news of birds and blossoming. Suddenly thy shadow fell on me. I shrieked and collapsed, my hands in ecstasy. I vowed that I would dedicate my powers to thee and thine. Why have I not kept the vow? With beating heart and streaming eyes, even now I call that phantoms of 1,000 hours, each from his voiceless grave, they have envisioned bowers of studious zeal, or love's delight, outwatched with me the envious night. They know that never joy illumed my brow, unlinked with hope that thou wouldst free this world from its dark slavery, that thou, O awful loveliness, wouldst give whatever these words cannot express. The day becomes more solemn and serene. When noon is past, there is a harmony in autumn, and there is a harmony in autumn and a luster in its sky, which through the summer is not heard or seen, as if it could not be, as if it had not been. Thus let thy power, which like the truth of nature on my passive youth descended to my onward life, supply its calm to one who worships thee, and every form containing thee, whom spirit fair thy spells did bind, to fear himself and love all mankind. So, a couple things that I want to really focus on. The day becomes more solemn and serene when noon is past. There is harmony in autumn and luster in its sky, which through the summer is not heard or seen, as if it could not be, as if it had not been. This is talking to the timeliness of life, how important it is to get the living in while the living is there to be had. But it is not about joy. It is about beauty. It is about power. It is about a love for intellectualism. And then we have what seems to be a fairly strange stanza earlier in this poem, if I can get my computer back up there. While yet a boy I sought for ghosts and sped through many a listening chamber, cave and ruin and starlight wood with fearful steps pursuing, hopes of high talk with the departed dead. I called on poisonous names with which our youth is fed. I was not heard, I saw them not, when musing deeply on the lot of life, that and at that sweet time when winds are wooing all vital things that wake to bring news of birds and blossoming, suddenly thy shadow fell on me. I shrieked and collapsed, my hands in ecstasy. So we do have that shred of darkness here. We do have the focus on intellectualism here. We do have the ever present thought of death in this poem. There are so many of the dark academic themes here that when the paradigm of dark academia is an option, I think that you would more readily classify this poem as dark academic than romantic. I think that you would more closely or more immediately classify this poem as dark academic than probably any other standard under which it is that you might put a poem like this. And I think that this is something that Shelley, upon further review, dark academia is something into which Shelley would fit more often than not, really. It seems that if you are allowing the dark academic paradigm to be one of literary classification, there are writers that fall in that classification, and there are pieces which fall into that classification. but I don't know that there's any one that you could fit in there all the time. Even Emily Dickinson, who I think is a beacon in the ocean of dark academia, has poems that I don't think you would necessarily qualify as dark academic, because I think that the canon of dark academia is something that is made after the fact. I think that part of the ironic thing about dark academia is, as a literary movement, it's not current. It's something from the past. It's something still praised from the past. That is all I have for this poetry discussion. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting a like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing I talk about on this channel, so consider hitting the subscribe button to stick around for more. And as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.